Hello everyone, I'm Natasha Fatah and you're watching CBC News Network. And we begin with the fast-moving developments on a momentous and potentially pivotal day in Israel's 15-month-old war with Hamas. A new ceasefire deal has commenced in Gaza, finally kicking in just under 8 hours ago after seeing a brief delay. Now, under the first phase of this deal, there is now a pause in the fighting for 42 days. Aid deliveries are being scaled up, and the first exchange of hostages held in Gaza for Palestinians detained in Israeli jails has now taken place. A camera operator working for CBC News captured these chaotic scenes in Gaza City, which took place just a couple of hours ago, as 3 civilian women were handed over by heavily armed Hamas members to the Red Cross. A huge crowd turned out to the streets to witness this handover. One of the women has family connections right here in Toronto. All are reported to be in good condition and are now back in Israel, where they are being medically evaluated and being reunited with family members after 471 days in captivity. And here we have the other part of the ceasefire deal, which involves the release of Palestinians detained by Israel. This was the scene at a prison in the West Bank a little while ago, buses pulling up to the main gate. Dozens of women and minors are listed to be freed today, part of a larger group of almost 800 being released, again, over the next 42 days. Let's now go to CBC News' senior correspondent, Sasha Petrusik, who's joining us once again from Jerusalem. Sasha, a huge day, and let's begin with those 3 Israeli hostages that have been released. What happens to them now?
Well, Natasha, they are being transported by helicopter from Reims, which is just on the Israeli side of the border from Gaza. They were taken over by car, by truck, by the Red Cross over into Israel under army escort, and then and now they'll be put onto those helicopters. They are being taken to a hospital, Sheba Hospital, which is just east of Tel Aviv, and there they will undergo medical exams, and they will be taken care of. There's an entire section of the hospital that's been set aside for them and their families, and of course that's all being very carefully watched. The 3 women are, the youngest of these is 24 years old. That's Romi Gonen. She is the one who has family connections in Toronto. She was abducted from a music festival that was going on just again on the Israeli side of the border with Gaza on October 7th, 2023. Early that morning, as she was trying to escape from the music festival. Emily Damari, 28 years old, she was abducted from a kibbutz not far from there as well. And Doron Steinbrecher, who's 31 years old, also from a kibbutz. A lot of those who were abducted were from kibbutzes along the border of Gaza, just on the other side. So once they are examined, once they are fine, then they will move out of hospital, obviously, but they will still have a lot of care, as many of the hostages who were released earlier, back in November 2023, they have had to have quite a bit of counseling and other types of care. So this is what is going on with the hostages, and what all of the other hostages, the other 30 who are going to be released over the next 42 days, that's pretty much the same sort of process that we're going to be able to see.
Let's talk about the other aspect of people being released, which is, of course, the Palestinians who've been detained in Israel. We know some of them are going to be reunited with their families today. What more can you tell us about that?
Right. They are being released from prison. These are women and minors who were all arrested and suspected of being responsible for various acts, which often Israel labels as terrorism. Women and minors, as I say, who were not involved in October 7th, and this is the first group that is being let go. 90 of them, that's 30 for every hostage that has been let go as well. It's a very carefully calculated number. And of those, a few will be going to East Jerusalem, 12, and 78 will be going to the West Bank. So this is mostly people who are not from Gaza, but from Israel and from the occupied West Bank as well as annexed East Jerusalem. What we have also seen here is really a lot of enthusiasm in the Palestinian community. Gaza itself changed dramatically in terms of what it looks like the moment the ceasefire was called. A lot of people were out in the streets. Aid was starting to flow in, and people were walking up into northern Gaza, into these areas from which they were pushed out over the past months. They are going back to try to see whether their homes are still standing, whether their loved ones in some cases are still alive, if they've lost touch with them. It's really a dramatic scene and a dramatic movement of hundreds of thousands of people. 2 million were displaced, and many of those are now on the move. This is what one of them had to say to us earlier today.
هي صدمة هاي جينا اليوم بعد 9 شهور لقينا البيت مقصوف ناس هذا بيوي 14 عيلة هذا بيوي 14 عيلة هذا فيه كانوا 7 طوابق فوق بعض ما كانش فيه ولا حاجة كنا نيجي ونروح ما كانش فيه كان كويس كنا معلمينه من شجرة هنا كانت شجرة تصور عليه أخذ الدار هذا ودار إخوانه الحين 14 عيلة مشردين وحسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل إيش بدي أقول.
So a dramatic scene, of course, also that show of force by Hamas fighters who were all over the territory and especially in the area where the hostages were being released, heavily armed and in uniform, something we have not seen in 15 months as this battle has been going on mainly, inside buildings and undercover.
You and I were speaking yesterday immediately after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made his first televised address since the deal was signed off on, and he really pushed and emphasized the point that this is a temporary ceasefire, and at any moment, if things don't go according to plan, Israel reserves the right to get back into a war with Hamas. Talk to us a bit more about that and where things stand.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a very strong message, and he was very adamant that this is characterizing this as a temporary ceasefire. And even today, government spokespeople were talking about how incoming U.S. President Donald Trump also has referred to this as a temporary ceasefire. He's trying to play both sides of Israel's political spectrum here in a way. The vast majority of people in Israel, polls will show, are strongly in support of the ceasefire, maybe even more strongly tonight as they see these hostages released. But he is also playing to his political allies in the Knesset, in the Israeli parliament, who are hardline right-wing, and they have been adamant that this ceasefire should not happen, that the fighting should continue, that if Israel stops fighting now or at any point, it is basically surrendering to Hamas, and that can't be done. In fact, he's lost one cabinet minister who resigned because of this, and another of these hardline cabinet ministers has promised to resign, threatened to resign, if this ceasefire goes beyond the first stage, which is these 42 days, and if it goes into what is really the end of the war, or what could be seen as the end of the war. So he is playing both of those sides, and it is all part of a very carefully calculated internal political game that has been very much a part of Israel's reaction, the reasons why it's been doing the different things it's been doing throughout this war over the last 15 months, especially in Gaza.
I don't believe that they'll be able to bring all 97 hostages in 6 weeks. So everything can go wrong until we see the very last hostage back home. So absolutely, there's a lot of tension. And among us, the families who are not supposed to see their loved ones within this first list of 33, there's a lot of uncertainty.
And that was in the so-called hostage square in the middle of Tel Aviv, where many of those who have been fighting strongly for exactly this kind of ceasefire, for bringing the hostages home, and has been pushing the government, protesting to get to this ceasefire even earlier than now. And indeed, what we are seeing today is exactly the process that was proposed back in the spring, back in May, but was never implemented because of the pressures, the political pressures that have existed within the parliament and within the political system here in Israel. So there's a lot at play here, and a lot of it has to do with internal politics.
CBC News senior correspondent Sasha Petrusik reporting from Jerusalem. Thank you, Sasha.